Hi, welcome back to Wallflowers. So this afternoon I was just browsing through social media and I came across a post. Um, I'd like to say it took me by surprise, but it didn't really. It's one of those things that I'm called, a conspiracy theorist for or a nutter for, and it's the climate change imposed rules or lack of freedoms that those imposed rules will bring. And some of those I've got my back up over the last few years. I remember quite a few years ago, I was beginning to feel quite disillusioned with politics. Um, I'd always voted the Labour Party, excuse me. Even in the early days, just as Blair was in his glory days, we might have been a bit financially better off than we had been prior because that was the sweetener, the carrot dangle. Um, so I read it and I was beginning to get a bit disillusioned and I started looking at other parties. The Green Party to me, on the basis, on the surface, I thought, okay, let's take a look at this party. Are these going to help us a bit more? And as I delved into the manifesto, there were a lot of things that it got my back up and I really wasn't happy with. Um, there was one thing I found, and I think it was actually scratched from the manifesto in later years, because every time I mention it, other people are saying they haven't been able to find it within the manifesto. And it was in basic council areas where we have a car park outside of the house. So you'll have a row of houses and then you'll have a community car park area in front of it. Part of the one of the things mentioned in that early manifesto was there would be parking meters. So if you were to go to work and then you come home and you park your car up for the evening, ready for work the next day, you'd actually have to feed a parking meter to keep your car in that car park. And of course, you haven't got a drive, a carport, or any of those areas where you could park your car elsewhere. That's the only facility available for you. And in order to park your car there over the night, you'd have to feed a parking meter. So rather than indirect taxation, I see that as direct taxation because, living in council areas, you're classed as the poorer of the country, shall we say. So to actually directly tax someone because they have to use a communal car park because they don't have a private driveway to park the car is direct taxation. And straight away, no. During the protest years and becoming more familiar with people from the Green Party and hearing their ideology and different things, it doesn't come across as green to me. And slowly over the years, I kind of balanced the Green Party very, very closely to the Conservative Party. And at the same token, now looking at Keir Starmer and the likes of their policies and gradually as Labour's changed over the years, you can't fit a cigarette paper between any of them. And the saying I've used before, and I'll use again and again, no matter how crude it is, they're both cheeks of the same arse, and all three of them are three cheeks of the same arse. I don't see a difference. Now, the thing I came across on the social media today was, now let me get the proper name of it. It's called the Oxfordshire County Council Lockdown Trial, and that's due to begin in 2024. So, Oxford, Oxfordshire County Council is run by Labour, Lib Dems, and the Green Party. And a cabinet member called Duncan Enright. Um, he's one of the leaders of the Oxfordshire County Council, and he's releasing information. His title within that is he is the cabinet member for travel and development strategy. Now he's releasing information on this lockdown trial for 2024. Well, how do we get that information other than snippets on social media or but other than snippets here and there? I wanted to see a document on the internet from Oxfordshire County Council. None of those are available. Are you okay, Mr. Wilford? None of those are available. The pieces written or verbally spoken by independent people. I wanted to see something directly as an announcement from Oxfordshire County Council. Do you know how they're doing it? They're releasing the information through the Sunday Times. And in order to see that information, you have to pay 86 pence a day for the subscription for the Sunday Times. Now, I don't pay those types of subscriptions. I don't really read media. I don't really read the newspapers, and I very rarely watch the media on TV, the news. So, no, I'm not going to pay the 86 pence. Again, it might sound like double standards, but if somebody else does and they can share those, I'll call it a document, but they're calling it a release of information. To me, it's a document, it's a statement to say what they're going to do to us as a people. So yeah, 86 pence is needed to pay per day to get the information I'm about to discuss. And I only have vague information from independents in social media. We're always told do our own due diligence, but we have to pay for it. Ridiculous. So let me start. So plans have already been approved for this to be brought in 2024. So we're being told it's already approved. So basically what they want to do is they want to put, this is starting Oxfordshire, and they want to put traffic cameras across the borders to instigate filters. So basically, it turn Oxford into a 15-minute city where you'd have local services within that 15 minutes area of where you live. And you're then told you can leave by foot. That's fine. If you choose to leave in the vehicle, whether it be going to work, visit family members, go to do your shopping, whatever it is, whatever reason you use your vehicle for, and you're travelling more than 15 minutes away from where you live, from your dwelling, you won't be allowed to. You won't be allowed to do that just freely and of free will whenever you choose to do it. You'll be allowed to leave that 15-minute zone, that 15-minute city, twice a week in that vehicle. You'll be allowed to do it 50 times a year or 100 times a year. Now, if you're a man and wife and you have a vehicle each, but both from that one dwelling, that then trims it down. Each car can leave that dwelling and travel in excess of 15 minutes for 50 times a year. Now, you add a grown child into the mix living in that dwelling, it then trims it down to the 33 times, a third of the 100 times. Now, you add a second grown child, so you've got a son and a daughter, they've both got their own vehicle, man and wife, they've both got their own vehicle. So each one of those vehicles would only be allowed to travel 15 minutes away from that dwelling 25 times a year. Now, if there's an event or there's something, you can apply for a permit for telling us now to travel outside that 15-minute zone from your dwelling. This has already been passed. The planning has been passed. Okay, it's only to start in Oxfordshire, but you can bet your bottom dollar They're going to do it in Oxfordshire. It's already pre-planned. They're going to do it to all of us. So we're going to end up with these mini cities. We're going to end up not being able to travel out. Now, my husband, we live in Lancashire. My husband travels to Greater Manchester to work. He also has to travel to Blackpool first before he travels to Manchester, and he's covering a vast distance. Now they'll probably say, oh, for work purposes, of insurance purposes, your employer will have you covered, and maybe you're called key workers again, as you were during the COVID lockdowns. Maybe you're called key workers and you're allowed access and travel permits and allowed to travel on a daily basis to do those jobs. So, what if you're just caring for an elderly parent? What if you're taking your children to school outside that 15-minute period and you need to do that twice a day, every day? You're not going to get those permits to do that. What if you choose to go to wholesalers? What if you choose to go to a different shopping area to do your shopping on a regular basis rather than the supermarket on your doorstep? You're not going to be able to do that. Our lifestyles are dramatically going to change for some people because you can't travel more than 15 minutes away from your dwelling, more than 100 times a year for one car. It's absolutely ridiculous. 365 days in a year, so it says twice a week. Twice a week, you can travel outside your zone. What was that? I can't even think what the name is. The Games film, the Hunger Games. We're all in zones. We're all in Hunger Game zones now. It's just absolutely bizarre. Let me see what else I put here. So each resident will be required to register their car with Oxford County Council in that zone, in the Oxford County Council zone, who will then monitor how many times you leave the area via the number plate technology. So that's what I was saying about the cameras at the filter zones. Obviously, your number plates will be tracked, and what will it be? A heavy fine to begin with? Will it be imprisonment? What will be the action? You'll be banned from driving. You'll be banned from leaving your zone again for how long? The punishments won't be light. There'll be 6 zones, so within Oxfordshire, 15-minute zones. So we'll have, if that spreads, we'll have that everywhere. As I said, if you have more than one vehicle within the home, that trims it down then to, each vehicle will only be allowed to leave the percentage of the 100 within that family dwelling. Um, it's just so bizarre. It's just so bizarre. And in order to get this information, we have to pay a media newspaper subscription to read it on the internet. It's not free information. We're not receiving, a documented letter each telling us what the future holds and what the thing is. We're going to have to read it through social media, through a public newspaper that we have to pay a subscription for. It's so bizarre. I've been saying over the years different things are going to happen, West and what they want to instill and closing down the areas and eventually making us live around the industrial areas and that. And people say, oh, you're bonkers, you're crazy. These things are coming in. These things are coming in. It's absolutely bizarre. I'm going to drink my cup of coffee now. And although these things are ticking around in my brain, I'm not going to let them get me down. I'm really not. Um, I don't know how we're going to overcome all this, but we're slowly but surely, we're like lab rats. We're being trapped in the cage, and it's just once we have the digital finances and the currencies removed and we're monitored each and every transaction. I mean, we're basically there now, except we do have, the use of cash and we can still use that freely. But once the cash is removed, we're literally in our zones, monitored what we're allowed to spend, what food is available. It's going to be soily and green before we know it. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And we're in 2022. And I remember being back at school and our history teacher gave us a project. What would the world be like in 20 years? I mean, and we're talking early 80s, and I remember drawing a picture of people being naked, um, because we were having the ozone layer thing thrown at us then, and not do this, not do that already because of the ozone layer. And I drew a picture of people being naked and was really scared to hand it into the teacher because she was quite strict. So I did a picture of someone's behind from the back. And I thought the world would be a prosperous place. We'd all have everything as a child. We'd all have everything we needed, and um, a bit like the leaflets the Jehovah's Witnesses have put through our doors. We'd be living peacefully with the animals, and this idyllic world. And it's not turned out that way. 1984 is 2022. George Orwell was exactly right. Monitored, restricted, and fearful in our actions for the next punishment. It's just bizarre. I don't mean to upset anyone today. I don't mean to bring anyone down. We have to have hope. We have to keep providing for ourselves and our family and those around us, and we have to try and find positivity. But we still have to be aware of the facts and of what's going on. We're intelligent human beings to not be entitled to see relevant information. We have to know what's going on. Not knowing is more torture than something actually happening to us because our own fear is bigger than reality. So we have to be aware of it, and then we have to be able to mentally adjust our sails and go within ourselves to be able to come back out to help everyone else. I hope that somehow makes sense because that's how I deal with things. But yeah, cup of coffee, sort the evening meal out, probably put a bit of music on and chat with my husband and pick myself up again from this because I will not let the buggers cram me down. And I hope you don't too. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again soon. Bye.